In the ancient yugas, when gods still walked the earth in human form, two great incarnations of Lord Vishnu, Sri Rama and Sri Krishna, lived among mortals. Though born in different eras, their divine essence transcended time, and in the sacred plains of Vaikuntha, their consorts, Sita, Rukmini, Satyabhama, and others, gathered in the solemn council. The realm was in unrest. A terrible imbalance had crept into the world. Ego, pride, vanity, and attachment to beauty had taken root among mortals and celestial beings alike. Even among the wives of the divine lords, there had arisen unspoken rivalry and secret pride in their famed beauty. Their flowing tresses, their fragrant locks, had become symbols of vanity rather than devotion. It was Narada who first spoke the harsh truth in the divine court. Even the most pious are not immune to pride. If the goddess consorts themselves cannot renounce vanity, how can the world be cleansed of it? Sita, ever wise and pure, lowered her gaze. Rukmini and Satyabhama exchanged glances. Draupadi, who had borne untold humiliation for her hair, clutched her braid in silence. It was then that Krishna, with his flute set aside and a rare seriousness in his voice, proclaimed, "Let there be a sacred rite of surrender. Let the consorts of Vishnu, in all his forms, renounce that which binds them to the mortal illusion of beauty. Let their hair fall to the sacred earth, not in shame, but in supreme sacrifice." Sita stood first. Her eyes calm, she said, "I was born of the earth, and to the earth I return my pride. I shall offer my hair at the feet of my Rama, not as a punishment, but as a symbol of unshakable devotion." Thus began the Mahatyaga, the great renunciation. In the gardens of Ayodhya, under the gaze of Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata and Shatrughna, Sita sat upon a stone platform. The queens of Ayodhya gathered around her, Mandavi, Urmila, Shrutakirti, dressed in white, their ornaments removed, their faces serene. A sacred barber woman from the ashram of sage Vashishta was summoned, an elderly hermitess with a life of vows. In silence, she drew out a curved blade. As the hymns rose and conchas blew, Sita bowed her head and the first locks fell. Thick, dark hair, oiled and perfumed, dropped like rivers upon the stone. One by one, the Ayodhyan queens followed. Their heads were anointed with sandalwood and ash after tonsure. The people wept, not in sorrow, but in awe. The shorn queens now walked among mortals not as royal wives, but as radiant embodiments of humility and strength. Meanwhile in Dwaraka, Krishna's palaces echoed with the murmurs of change. Rukmini, the silent power behind the throne, was the first to consent. "If our husbands renounced kingdoms and riches for dharma, what are mere strands of hair to us?" she declared. Satyabhama hesitated, her vanity sharper than the others. But when Krishna gently said, "Do you trust me enough to offer even this?" she knelt. In the temple of Dwaraka, beneath the grand deity of Krishna, the wives sat in a circle. Their hair was washed in turmeric and milk, dried in the sun, and then, before the gathered court, each woman underwent tonsure. Some wept softly, others chanted. The air was thick with incense and prayers. When the last locks of Satyabhama were shorn, Krishna placed his hand on her bald head and smiled. "Now, you shine like the moon, free of shadow." Even Draupadi, in Hastinapura, chose to participate. After her vows of vengeance and the pride of her 5 husbands, she had borne the pain of humiliation through her unbound hair. Now, in a quiet grove by the Ganga, she offered her tresses willingly. As the blade touched her scalp, she whispered, "Let this be the end of my burden." Thousands of women across Bharat followed suit. From queens to hermits, from courtesans to warriors, women came forth to the temples. Shaving their heads was no longer taboo, but the highest act of surrender, a rite of spiritual liberation. They wore their baldness like a crown, an emblem of their truth. The ritual came to be known as the Kesh Yajna, the sacrifice of hair. It cleansed not just vanity, but karma itself. It became a festival observed in every yuga, every age of darkness, when the world needed balance. And thus, the women of gods led the world in devotion, not with jewels, not with songs, but with a blade, a vow, and a bare head turned toward the heavens.